Local fire officials and aviation experts say some sort of landing gear malfunction was likely. There's also speculation from officials that this may have been caused by a bird strike. The pilot
So it was landing. I thought it was taking off.
also made a Mayday call shortly after the control tower warned about birds in the area. According to FlightAware, the Jeju airliner was listed as a Boeing 737 traveling from Bangkok, Thailand, before it crash landed at the Muan airport in South Korea. That's in the southwest part of the country. This is the country's worst air disaster in decades.
Dude, this is an incredible air disaster. I mean, it would be nice to say that it was like the worst one in history, but worse ones than this is crazy. But they did land, so it wasn't like a crash, but the thing evaporated.
CNN's Mike Valerio has been following this breaking news story from Seoul. Mike, update us on the investigation and where things stand now.
Well, I would say that probably the most dramatic element, Amra, under the floodlights that are illuminating the crash site here is just the urgent effort to try to find the two sets of remains that are of the passengers who are unaccounted for right now. I'll tell you, we've had such a whiplash, chain of events as we followed this story throughout the day here in South Korea. And there was so much hope, Amra, as you mentioned, after the two people were found, the survivors in the back of the plane, the two crew members were rescued and made it out with their lives.
Survivors in the back. Two survivors? Dude, this one was brutal. You'll see the video.
There was hope from a whole host of emergency responders that perhaps a third or a fourth person could be found alive as well. But that hope quickly diminished after the noon hour here in South Korea.
Oh, God, that would be the most fucking brutal thing. You'd feel like maybe you were chosen.
So what's happening right now, the two survivors are being moved to hospitals here in Seoul. We don't know their exact conditions as of yet, or if they've been able to speak to investigators. But what they have to say will be critical because the voice and data recorders that comprise the black boxes of this aircraft have both been found. So when you combine...
Wow, the screaming, dude. That's going to be an interesting one when they drop that.
Those two elements, plus the two survivors, that could paint a more accurate picture because there are elements that are in tension of just what happened here. And what we mean by that is we have a whole slew of people who are involved in the investigation, from government officials that have come from Seoul and also more local leaders like the chief of the fire department, who have mentioned that bird strikes, or a bird strike, I should say singular, could have played a role in a cascading series of events that led to the landing gear malfunctioning. But still, from our analysts who we've spoken to over the past couple hours, it's unclear how a potential bird strike would lead to landing gear not coming down, would lead to the flaps on the aircraft wings not coming up to slow down the speed of the aircraft. It's not clear why exactly this 737-800 landed.
Sounds like a fucking excuse. Excuse my
landing
language.
Gear.
But bird strikes, I don't know, dude. These are massive machines. One bird I don't think is going to hold up it. Maybe like you said, a whole slew of birds got stuck. I don't know. It's a mystery. I feel like things like this become war tactics.
Not coming down would lead to the flaps on the aircraft wings not coming up to slow down the speed of the aircraft. And it's not clear why exactly this 737-800 landed so far down the runway, very close to the end of the runway, and why there was all of this equipment near the end of the runway, which is what the...
He might have had too much sake, the pilot,
plane slammed into when it met its cataclysmic end. So there are still so many unanswered questions. But Amara, as you and so many of our viewers have been following, we're coming off a time of martial law, December 3rd into December 4th. We're now on our third person who's holding the powers of the president because of the impeachment saga that has been going on since December 3rd. So to say that...
Yeah, this is some sort of move. I mean, there's so many pieces here that don't fall into place. I mean, this is some sort of war strategy, political move.
That this has cast a new pall over the country, I would say, is such an understatement, as so many people are in mourning here across South Korea, Amara.
Yeah, just very difficult scenes to watch.
Terrible. 177. When's the last time 177 people died at once, other than war?
As this continues to play out, Mike Valerio, thank you very much for your reporting. Let's talk more about this with CNN safety analyst, aviation analyst David Susi. David, you just heard there from Mike that 2 of the black box.
I just looked up the Shanghai earthquake. This was in 1556. Shanghai earthquake killed an estimated of 830,000 people in northwest China at the same time. But I'm looking up, when's the most people that died at once? I mean, like at once in that moment. That's a lot of people.
The data and voice recorder have been recovered, so obviously we will be learning more in the coming days. But from what we know, also seeing that video where you see the plane landing, you see that the wheels that are used for takeoff and landing are not out when it comes down. And then we've also heard speculation from South Korean officials that this could have been a bird strike playing a factor in this. What is your initial assessment, David?
Well, there were so many different aspects to this and unanswered questions. I don't see any connection between a bird strike and whether the landing gear was able to come up or down or not. I really can't see that those two things are related. However, what can be related is the response to a bird strike. So after you've hit a flock of birds, you may have an engine out, you might have things going on, and that creates a lot of chaos in that cockpit as far as how the aircraft is going to land, where it's going to land on the runway, all of those things. You don't have a lot of options. If you overshoot a runway by a little bit, which it appears had this happen here, is that you're going to hit in the middle of the runway.
I'll be surprised with you. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm surprised that this doesn't happen more often. Really. I mean,
as you go traverse down it, so that can cause that overspeed condition at the end. But there's so many different unanswered questions, and yes, flight data recorder will give us those answers.
Also, the fact that there was equipment at the end of this runway. You know, what you see is this plane landing. It's careening on its belly, and then you see that it strikes navigation equipment there on the runway, hits a wall, and then bursts into flames. I mean, why is there equipment there on the runway?
You know, that's my biggest question that I have is airports are supposed to be designed where an aircraft can land without landing gear. And if it veers off the runway to one side or the other into the grass, that there isn't obstructions and barriers of this type that are close to the runway. In this case, I haven't quite been able to determine yet, but there's no answer as to why that lighting facility, which is a large piece of concrete equipment, is located exactly where it is. There's no reason in my mind for it to be there.
Someone fucked up.
So that would be my next question does the airport meet the standard design criterion for an international airport? So those things will be looked at very closely by the investigators.
If there was an issue, David, with the landing gear, being deployed, would there have been a warning system in place notifying the pilots so they don't attempt to land?
Yes, there is. It'll say gear up, to make you remind yourself to bring the gear up as you have a proximity warning to the ground. So they would have gotten those notices. But by the time you get that, if you are in this situation, and let's say, for example, you come into land.
Yeah, that is crazy. It is crazy. I mean, this is absolutely insane. 181. Pff. Oh, Jesus.
And you don't have another engine, you can't make a go around and try it again. So even though you get those warnings, by the time you get the landing gear down in the position that they were in, you wouldn't have time to get them fully extended. So that may be the problem here, is that they didn't have time to make the go around and assure that the gear had been lowered properly.
David, it's remarkable that we're talking about survivors in yet another plane crash here. 2 survivors, we understand they are crew members who were pulled out of of this plane. They were apparently found
cannot
in the
wait to
tail
hear
of
what
the
they have
plane.
to
And I
say.
want to ask you this because we've been talking about, wow, I think it was the Azerbaijan airline where you had survivors as well, the plane that was apparently shot down out of the skies there. And the survivors from that crash are believed to have been sitting in the rear. Is the rear of the plane the safest part of the aircraft?
Well, it depends on what kind of
yeah, I
accident
mean, the
you're
front,
in.
maybe.
But I think it was
Yeah, they did fuck up bad. Tooth Fairy ass, what up? Yeah, they did fuck up bad.
2021, the FAA did a study on this to determine the fatality rates on those accidents that had survivors. They came up with not much difference. There was 39% fatality rate in those people that are in the front of the aircraft versus the middle of the aircraft, which was around 34%.
That is interesting.
But in the rear, it was 32%. So it was a slightly better chance of survivability in the tail of the aircraft, but it's not a significant number, although we have witnessed that in the last few days.
Oh, for sure.
Both miraculously.
Oh, the landing didn't stick? No, the landing didn't. Yeah, it slid. That's why dude, there's too much shit like this happening. And it's like we act like it's not, you know? So you guys got to stay safe, man. We got one life. Yeah, we got one life. For sure.
Having survivors, yes.
This Jeju
Oh, yeah.
Airlines flight
Stay
is
safe,
listed as a
for
Boeing
real.
737-800. What do we know about this particular plane, considering that we've talked about Boeing a lot over the past years, and it's, the hits
That
it has
company's
taken
been
to
going
its reputation
downhill.
with
I mean, have you seen the stocks for Boeing? No one wants to invest in that anymore.
other crashes, and also the safety record of this airline. What else do we know about that?
This airline has an impeccable safety record. There's nothing to indicate that there's anything wrong with their maintenance, their facilities, their operations.
Okay.
Everything seems to be in
I
line
don't
with this
believe that
airplane.
for a second.
As far as the 800 goes, it's an NG model. They talk about it as an NG. This airplane is the backbone right now, not only in domestic U.S. where it's manufactured, but around the globe. This aircraft flies a typical model of this aircraft flies 4 or 5 flights every day, and there are thousands of these airplanes out in the industry. So this is one of the safest airplanes, record-wise, percentage-wise.
It's the pilot's fault. It's the airport's fault for not having everything secure. I mean, I could say it's a conspiracy, but I think if they had equipment on the runway like that, dude, come on. Someone's to blame. And I don't know, you can't be lazy in a job like this. That's the problem with people. That's why I don't trust. When I think about it, I feel like people are like, "Oh yeah, like this is a pilot, this respectable person." But I'm like, "Hell no." Dude, I don't trust these people. They're regular people. And they've been flying back and forth with jet lag, sleeping from hotel to hotel, probably had some drinks last night. You really think you're going to trust this guy? If I know that myself would like not be able to handle it, shit, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to jump on the plane. I don't know. Maybe I'll trust if I knew the pilot, like on a private jet or something, I think I would trust it more. But it's crazy to see all these celebrities go fly all over the place, dude. I don't understand it. It's just too much. It's too much energy for me. I think the jet lag and the partying and shit would get a little bit too much for me personally.
That is in the air right now. So the fact that this has occurred when everything seems to be in order is very disturbing, and we're really looking forward to seeing what we can learn from this horrific accident.
Yes,
A
the
horrific
problem
accident
is
indeed.
there's no room
Obviously
for
still an
accidents
active
and stuff like that, so it's very tedious. I mean, there's no room for one mistake. It's guys. I don't want to do something like that. I don't want to fly 181 people anywhere and be responsible for that many people while you're in the ground. Rest in peace to the pilot and everyone on there, man. Jesus. I bet it was some people's first flights too, and they'll never ever do that shit again. You know? Wow. So hopefully they figure it out, but I mean, a situation like that is too hard to figure out. You know what I mean?